Kraven stumbles out of the gates in its opening weekend. Production hell for Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse. And a Clayface body horror written by Mike Flanagan. All this and so much more on a jam-packed episode of Beyond the Screen. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Screen. I, as always, am your host, Ryan Gum. With me, as always, is Jacob Holtzclaw. Jake, how you doing?
Doing good, man. I'll tell you what, I watched Red 1 over the weekend.
No, you didn't.
I did.
It
I
happened.
sat down and I watched the whole thing.
What possessed you to do such a thing?
Well, I figured after shitting on it for 3 episodes, I would sit down and I'd give it the due diligence. And yeah, it's about what you'd expect. I'm not gonna lie. It was a little weird because, and I'll spoil it now that it's been out for a while. There's a thing called the Christmas Witch, or I guess a lady called the Christmas Witch. And she's trying to ruin Christmas. And it was just odd. Krampus is in it. That was crazy. Didn't know that. He was like a big horned man minotaur looking thing. But yeah, Red 1. It was okay. That's about all you're gonna get out of me. It was okay.
The Holtzclaw stamp of just meh is what that is.
It's exactly what I thought it was gonna be. It's exactly what everybody thought it was gonna be. Do I think it's as awful as Rotten Tomatoes is saying at a 30%? Not really. I mean, I agree more with IMDb putting it at a 6.5 out of 10, I guess. So yeah. It's a good 6.
I'm a little dumbfounded because we sat and talked for an hour before recording and never at any point did you mention this, that you had seen this movie. So my genuine reaction is what you heard when you said that, you at home listening. I had no idea that you had partaken in such an event. So you heard it here first. Red 1, just a big meh. Does it deserve, you said it doesn't deserve its tomato meter rating. Does it deserve to flop as bad as it did? This is my last question.
I mean, did it make its money back?
No.
It did not make its money. It 92 million gross as of this weekend, out of what, 150, probably more.
No, it was 250 million to make. Yeah, and it was like, that's not counting marketing, I don't think.
Oh, that's sad.
So let's assume that they spent 100 million. Let's just say it was 350 million to get this movie out there. So you're saying no, It doesn't deserve that, is what I'm hearing.
I'm actually very surprised that I am surprised it did not make its money. I mean, not even half. I mean, if you're saying it's 350, if you're actually putting it there as an estimate and it didn't make half, I'm actually kind of surprised it didn't make half because it wasn't that bad,
Yeah.
So 90 million out of 350 is rough, but yeah, no. So Red 1, we crapped on it. Now we're going meh and kind of disappointed in it because I would have thought it done better.
Well, I think that's a great segue point to talk about our first piece of box office news. From one flop to another, Sony's Kraven the Hunter earns a measly $11 million on its opening weekend. That is an estimate, by the way. Box Office Mojo has not certified their numbers yet as of Monday night, so not sure what that's about. But as of right now, it's at a flat $11 million, which is certainly wrong, but that's what you're hearing right now because that's what we got. Did not do well. It had a budget of $110 million, and I've seen nothing but memes from this movie. Apparently, this is worse. This opening of $11 million is worse than the generally accepted trash film that is Madam Web, which had $15 million. This is the end, Jake, of the Sonyverse kind of spin-off of Spider-Man villains turned action leads in these films. They're done. They're not producing anymore outside of Beyond the Spider-Verse and Spider Noir, a series. I think that's going on Amazon. Morbius, Madam Web, and Kraven. I won't even lie. I'm going to miss this era. Not because they produced good films, but because I had a laugh at every turn. Watching Jared Leto use his bat kind of sonar or his pinging to kind of learn his powers or whatever was one of the funniest experiences I've ever had in a cinema. Seeing Madam Web's trailer, I cannot remember what the joke was, but they were in the Amazon studying spiders was hilarious. Jake, what do you think about this era coming to an end?
Yeah, I wish I could say it's sad, but I didn't particularly care for this era. I think it comes down to people having read the comics and knowing who Kraven is from even like we grew up with the animated Spider-Man
Mm-hmm.
on I don't remember who provided it. It wasn't Cartoon Network, but animated Spider-Man had Kraven in it, the TV show, and then you had him in the comics for all the people who are older than us. So Kraven is this evil hunter, you know, like he's hunting Spider-Man to kill him, to cut his head off and mount it on a plaque on the wall.
Yeah.
And now we're supposed to follow this Kraven against his the synopsis is the complex relationship with his ruthless father. So maybe people can get behind that, but if you have daddy issues, so we kind of have to treat Kraven as the protagonist through this film until he's inevitably turned into a villain at the very end. So it's really hard to have a villain movie if he's not already heralded as a anti-hero, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So like Deadpool works and Venom works because they're already kind of anti-heroes, whereas Kraven, he's full evil. We've only ever known him as full evil, and now I'm supposed to sympathize with him because he has a bad father. Well, no duh, he's evil. Most of them have bad fathers. Um, so maybe that's why, but it doesn't. I will stand by Madam Web being AI written. I believe that
Oh,
in my heart. I
yeah.
believe Madam Web was written by AI.
It's just so
Whether or not
bad.
I will ever be proven right.
I think
Um,
I think the biggest miss from this, and this is kind of the other side of why I'm sad that this is coming to an end, is because, as I said before, no more of these movies from Sony outside of what's kind of already on dock, and those are already, we're going to get into those later. They're having the Spider-Verse films are having their trouble, and again, we'll talk a lot about that later. It was reported it has come out. So if anyone who's known anything about Sony and Marvel and their deal for Spider-Man, it was generally assumed that Sony was barred from using Spider-Man because obviously there is one very prominently displayed in the MCU in Tom Holland. And it was thought that Sony was just not allowed in their deal to use him in any other medium. Turns out that wasn't true. Sony could have at any point used Tom Holland, even, or any version of Spider Man thereof, in any of their films. They just didn't. They just actively chose not to. They did not use the biggest cash cow. Spider Man is a bigger IP than Batman. I will say that. I genuinely think because Spider Man is like more family friendly. People like Spider Man because he's exactly your friendly neighborhood character. They chose not to use him. People have been calling for a Tobey Maguire or an Andrew Garfield sequel for years now. Sony had every reason to do so. They just didn't. And their excuse for not using any Spider-Man wasn't because, oh, we just didn't think. They were worried audiences wouldn't accept Tom Holland in particular appearing outside of non-MCU films. The multiverse kind of drew this fine line for them, at least philosophically. And you know, if you're gonna like that is justified with Tom Holland, use Andrew Garfield. Do something different.
yeah.
Make a new one to compete. If there's one thing they can do right, they do good Spider-Man films. Between, from Tobey Maguire to the animated Spider-Verse movies, they do fine. Why? What happened? There's so much missed opportunity here, and that bothers me.
Yeah. And so I know a lot of people who really want Andrew Garfield to reprise the role. I mean, they feel like he was the best Spider-Man. People will split them apart: best Peter Parker versus best Spider-Man. People think Andrew Garfield captured the quick thinking and the jokes on the fly while fighting. They thought that was Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man was the best to capture that. And then there's others who think that Maguire was the best Parker. Others will argue Tom Holland's the best of both worlds. But yeah, Andrew Garfield seems to be kind of like he did get hate, I think, at the beginning, but now he's turned into like that the Anakin Skywalker. I forget his name. Christian. right? Isn't that
Yeah,
his name?
Haydenson. Yeah.
Haydenson. So he's now loved. I think that's kind of how Garfield is being treated now.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people liked him in the first one, but they grew to love him as Spider-Man, and it's sad that we don't get to see another one of those because honestly, I think Garfield would have been the best to go against this Kraven.
Yeah, I mean, it's so annoying because, well, one, if Sony would have stuck to source material, like another big point of contention and laughs really from Kraven is how Rhino looks. Why can't people just put him in it like he always looks like he's in a suit, right? Like Rhino, he's this big hulking figure with the gray skin look, but he at the bottom of his face is just human, and he's got like a rhino head, like almost like a helmet that pulls over. Never has that interpretation ever been like given to screen, and people are dying for it. Instead, in Kraven, they made him this terrible looking CGI. He looks like, I read this somewhere online, he looks like a Power Rangers villain. He looks horrible. And to match up what you're saying, Andrew Garfield has so much more story to tell, and we saw glimpses of that in Spider-Man 3 in the latest Tom Holland when he, obviously everyone shows up. Him getting over Gwen, him kind of coming to grips with the fact that he could not save the one person that he loved. That is something that he hints upon, says he didn't hold his punches back for a while. That is something I'd pay to see. I would love to see him grip with that, him grow older. He's in that prime era where an Andrew Garfield kind of like growing through the like almost like a Peter, what was it? Peter, is it B. Parker in Across the Spider-Verse? I can't remember. There's so many different versions, but like the more adult version where he's got like a beer belly, like maybe Andrew Garfield not have that, but like that more adult version of him that's learned from these mistakes. And that I would love to see that on film because we've never gotten it. And Andrew is perfect for that. Just stick to source material. Use what you can. And they had $1 billion franchise, and they didn't. And that to continue on, if we're going to continue on the Sony hate, because right now I'm mad at them. They make great cameras. I love Sony as a videographer. Hate them as a distribution company right now. It is reported that Sony, going forward with some sleazy news from Sony, in my opinion, they bumped up their film's co-financier, TSG, their stake from 25% to 50% to try to limit the film's losses. This is after its opening weekend. This tactic they could do twice a year. I cannot believe that this is even an option. So for anybody who doesn't know anything about like productions, obviously it takes more than just one body to fund these hundreds and millions of dollars worth of production. So they can just at any point, twice a year, say, okay, now you have to handle half the load because we made a bad film. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a little rude. If I was TSG, I'd probably be a little ticked off, just a tad, a few $1 million out of the bank there. But we'll see if anything comes of that. We'll probably hear something about court cases or, I mean, they're allowed to do that, I guess. You say twice a year.
Yeah.
I don't know what the rules are on that, but it seems like that would be I would be ill-advised in terms of relationships between financiers.
And I think that's kind of it on Sony. I think we should move on because we're 13 minutes into a 15-minute to 20-ish minute segment. So if you're listening, we have not even gone over the list yet. We just jumped into Kraven. Kraven is third with 11 million. Sorry about that. Going back to number one, Moana 2 at the top, reigning supreme, brings in another 26.6 million to bring its total gross domestically to over 337 million. Wicked comes in at number 2, no shock there, 22.5 million on the weekend, bringing their total to 359 million. Back and forth between Moana and Wicked. Wicked has a week on Moana, and they're right there neck and neck. Walt Disney and Universal going back and forth, as I said before. Kraven at 3, Gladiator 2 sticking around in the top 5 at number 4, bringing in just under 8 million on the weekend to bring their domestic total gross to 145, almost 146 million. Number 5, new to the top 5, new to the list in general, the new Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, an animated feature. Christopher Lee makes an appearance with some old test footage and some old vocals as Saruman, or please forgive me if I got the name wrong. I haven't seen Lord of the Rings in forever. 4.6 million on the weekend. That's its total gross so far, released by Warner Brothers. Moving down the list, Jake's Red One, sticking around at number 6, making another 4.4 million. That kind of ends Dwayne Johnson's streak of having 2 films in the top 5 of the box office. It's still, as Jake said earlier, at 92.6. Number 7 is Pushpa: The Rule Part 2, the Bollywood film, 3.7 million on the weekend to bring its total domestically to 13. Look at 8, Jake. Interstellar with another 3.3 million on the weekend to bring its total to just under 12 million. That, my friends, is an IMAX re-release record. What do you think about Interstellar again, sticking it out?
I mean, is it a cash grab? Is it just to do some fan service? Do people really want to watch Interstellar again? Obviously, I guess they do. I mean, it's not going to be, I mean, it's right there with the Bollywood movie. So maybe they're going to, maybe some people are seeing Pushpa in Interstellar. I doubt it. Interstellar is only shown in 321 theaters. So good luck finding one in the nation to go see it. But yeah, it's supposedly one of the best movies in history, and it's proving itself to be something people want to go back to IMAX to watch.
I again am impressed. I know that resale on these tickets have been in the hundreds of dollars for people getting into the theater. So people, there's still a craving for it. Christopher Nolan had nothing but awesome words to say about what he thought. I don't have those written down. I apologize, but I know he was very flattered by it. I'm sure his pocketbook is very flattered by it too.
Yeah, but can you imagine Red One on IMAX?
Can you imagine this is gonna be a game changer, according to Dwayne Johnson. Moving down the list at number 9, I don't know what this film is. It's called Interstellar 5555, and everything I'm about to read to you after this, the title, I should say, the S's are all 5s, the story of the secret star system. And if you're wondering what the synopsis for that is, according to IMDb, 4 talented alien musicians are kidnapped by a record producer who disguises them as humans and has them reprogrammed to forget their real identities and play soulless corporate pop as the Crescendoles.
Okay, it is an anime, so I've never heard of this, but this is it's a the film tells the story of the abduction and rescue of the extraterrestrial pop band, right? But it serves as a visual companion to Discovery, which is Daft Punk's second studio album.
Oh, okay. I think I heard about this actually. Everything about this feels like I'm living the synopsis.
It's weird. It's really odd.
Its distributor is Trafalgar Releasing. And
it is Japanese, I believe.
It made 2.3 million, Jake.
Hey man.
Dog, I didn't know Daft Punk still had sway like that. I didn't know Daft Punk still had sway like that. Like, what?
Oh, come on. Of course they do, man. Didn't they just do something? They dropped an album.
No,
or
they broke up.
I don't know. They were in the news
right?
not too long ago. They did break up.
Okay, well, we're going to wrap up this segment real quick. Number 10 is The Best Christmas Pageant, made another 1.2 million and a 36 total gross and domestic box office from Lionsgate. Quick thought, looking ahead to this weekend, it's another big battle in the box office. A lot of money is about to be thrown around. Sonic and Mufasa, both coming out December 20th, this Friday. Here we go. We're talking about that. A few weeks ago, we were discussing how it would be interesting to see if Sonic could upset the $1 billion prequel, I should say, Mufasa. According to Box Office Pro, Sonic right now is estimated to make between 65 and 85 million, and Mufasa 55 to 75 million. So Sonic is still outpacing. What do you think, real quick, before we end the segment?
I'm still going for Mufasa. If I was a betting man, I got to put Mufasa, because I was thinking about something the other day. I work in a marketing role, so I see all kinds of different things with ads and stuff. And I was thinking, all these kids are watching Disney Channel and things like that, and that's exactly where you'd market that movie. Is Mufasa is going to be in front of all these kids, whereas Sonic, who puts that out? Shit, who puts that out? Do you know?
I think it's Paramount.
Paramount. So
yes,
unless they're on that streaming service, they probably won't see it as often. But like Mufasa should be in the ad roll with Disney, and maybe I still think it's gonna be Mufasa. I'm gonna put my chips on red and say Mufasa.
Well, in our metaphorical beyond the screen bucks, I'm putting all my chips on black and I'm going to bet on Sonic because, one,
Oh,
personally, I've seen a lot more Sonic ads and more hype surrounding Sonic. And I think you underestimate the Sega and the Sonic fandom as a whole. Um,
I was gonna say, so you're in the you're getting the ads for Sonic, but are you the demographic that's gonna push it
I know.
over
Listen.
the edge?
You're completely right, and I did think about that, but I still stand by it. Our again, our beyond the screen bucks are on opposite colors, and we're going to see where we land. And the winner will have bragging rights.
All right.
Coming
Maybe we'll
up.
do a
Oops, sorry.
poll on this episode.
Ooh, go ahead. Please answer the poll down
Yeah.
below. Coming up after the break, we have news surrounding Beyond the Spider-Verse release date, and it's not looking good if you're curious. Clayface gets a facelift from Mike Flanagan at DC, and a Warhammer 40K series finally in the works at Amazon. This up next. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to segment 2 of Beyond the Screen. We're in major news. I know you're probably tired of hearing about Sony and especially Spider-Man because we just spent 20 minutes, essentially 20 minutes, discussing it. However, we do have a last bit of news. Beyond the Spider-Verse, not looking so hot. Jarrell Jerome, the voice of Miles G. Morales / Prowler. Now, if you haven't seen the last film in the Spider-Verse series, you're probably a little bit confused. I won't spoil it here. You should go watch it. For those of you that do know who this is, he's got some kind of sad comments surrounding the next film. No one knows when it's going to be released. He's not even started recording his lines yet. He's a pretty important character within the series, going to be a big part of that climax coming up with the third and the threequel. Sony has no plans to release this film next year. For reminder, this film was slated to release earlier this year, March 29th of 2024. Reportedly, Sony's taking, quote, a lot of tender, loving care in terms of the film and its story. No one really knows what's going on. If you remember back in September, it was reported that the film would likely not be released before 2027. That was due to creative differences and creative direction, and much of the original film had already been scrapped, so they had made some. There were talks, if you remember, the film, the sequel, I should say, the second film in the series, came out last year in 2023. So the original release date was 9 months after that release, so there was a lot of talk that maybe they had done both films back to back or done it all in that 5-year stretch between the first and the second. Then all of a sudden, nothing. Then the film got pushed back, and now you have one of the most prominent voices in the film saying they've not even started. This, however, was refuted. This claim that the production hell is real in the Spider-Verse set and that much of the original film was scrapped. Producer Christopher Miller and composer Daniel Pemberton both denied this, saying that just wasn't true. There has been no scrapping. We're just taking our time. While we might not know a lot, this is what we do know. The film isn't being released soon, and it doesn't necessarily look good from this perspective when you've got people saying it's going to be until 2027. Sony firing back, no, it's not, but it's not going to be next year. There's only 1 year in there. That's 2026, and they're not confirming it for then. Jake, what do you think?
I don't think they know. Sorry to leave a pause there. I don't think they know exactly when, because I mean they've scrapped the majority of the movie. It's just kind of like that business way of saying maybe, but having the fallback of 27 to just say, yeah, it was actually 27, but we never confirmed. So it's kind of like a covering your butt tactic there. When do I think it's going to come out? I'm optimistic, but I know how bureaucrats work, so I'm going to say 27 is the likely number.
Yeah, it's irksome and it's worrisome to have your producer come out and say, actually, no, that's wrong. And then nobody can give a definitive year, at least. They can't even say a year. They've been working on, like, it took 5 years from the first to the second one to make. I understand. So it's going to take some time between, especially if you've scrapped everything. But regardless, say you're starting from scratch. It's going to take some time to make, especially the art that they do. So I completely understand that. But let's take a look at another film that's coming out this year. And this is something I haven't written down. I read this before we started recording. Wicked 2 has its title. Wicked Part 2 is officially going to be titled Wicked for Good, with the release of next year, November 21st, that is 2025. They can do it properly. We've seen it done. They have had all this time to prep. They know the story. And I guess that's where a little different is that this story has been told. It's not like they're writing something from scratch. It's a new adaptation, whatever. However, It is just so problematic that Sony cannot commit to even a year.
Yeah. I mean, a year's a long time, but maybe it's because the timeline is so close to year end. Like maybe um if filming and or editing is slated to be right up to 2026 December, and that's why they can't necessarily nail it down, especially when they don't have lines. Yeah, I say filming, now that I think about it, it isn't animated, but by the time they have the lines done, it, and then the animators get to it, maybe it's so close. Maybe that's why.
You'd like to think so, but it's problematic to me that we've been talking about this since September. And as things come out, and this is all I think kind of compiling on the fact that Sony is kind of in the dumpster fire right now. They're in the middle of a war zone. Everyone's hating on Sony right now. And to have this come out in conjunction with Kraven being as bad as it is, it looks really bad. Now, will that necessarily translate? Will this end up being a fantastic film in the end? Probably, because I trust Chris Miller. I trust these filmmakers. However, just in this moment, hindsight bias, having just this past day seen everything, in this past weekend, seen everything come about with Kraven again, it's just not a good feel for me. And I care very deeply about this franchise. Moving on, Variety reported last week that a Mike Flanagan written Clayface film has been greenlit at DC Studios and by James Gunn. The film will be produced by Matt Reeves, but a lot of rumors going around, rumored that this will actually be in James Gunn DCU and not Matt Reeves' Elseworld Batman, which if you follow us, we last week especially talked about the difference between one and the other and how James Gunn's allowing these stories to kind of form in whatever realm they can film. So it's weird that there's this back and forth between is this in the DCU or is this in the Elseworld? Here's what we know. The film will be a horror tragedy with a $40 million budget and that the character will not emphasis on not be painted as a villain. If you don't remember Mike Flanagan, he's got a glowing filmography. Films such as Gerald's Game, Hush, and the acclaimed The Haunting of Hill House, the series on Netflix. This man is a horror connoisseur. This has been something he's talked about for a long time. The story idea, he tweeted about it. It was an interesting story concept to him all the way back in 2021. According to sources, in 2023, he pitched the idea to DC. Now in 2024, late 2024, albeit it has been greenlit by the brass at DC. This all reinforces a claim by James Gunn himself that his studio is, quote, one of the main things that I want to establish is that you can do anything at DC Studios. Again, it is surprising that with Matt Reeves attached, this could still be in the DCU, but other reports, as I said, there's many things flying around, other reports claim that this Clayface could be the villain or one of the villains in the Robert Pattinson Batman 2, which is obviously a Matt Reeves baby. Regardless of rumor, the film is set to be released September 11th of 2026. Jake, with all that being said, I diarrhea of the mouth, a ton of information on you. What is your interest level in this film?
I mean, it will vary depending on Gunn's universe versus Reeves' universe, because I enjoyed the Batman in Reeves' universe, and so I want to see more. I watched the Penguin TV show when it came out. Like I am into Matt Reeves' universe, the Elsewhere. So, and I didn't care for Guns, and so I'm really crossing my fingers. Hope we see a Clayface in a universe that I think can give it that edge, because kind of like how, and this is a separate universe, the Joker was something we haven't necessarily seen before, and then the Batman kind of told more edgy, like he's the depressed Batman. He's 20 something or like late 20s early 30s depressed Batman. It's just another way to tell the story, and I like the grungy dirty feel to the Matt Reeves universe. And I don't know if they're gonna stick to like the detective themes, but with Batman Part 2, but Clayface being a horror, I think would fit so well into Reeves's universe. Whereas Guns, I don't know if he's gotten into the horror much. I know I saw what I think it was an end credit scene with like the apocalypse and Batman and Joker are all there. Wasn't
Yeah.
that like an end credit scene?
And it was a you talking about in the animated the Creature Commandos, or
No, no, that's back when the movie. The I think it was at the end of Justice League or something.
oh yes,
Wasn't
yeah,
it?
yeah, that was way back when in Zack Snyder's. Yes, yeah, yeah, I know what you're
Oh,
talking
was it
about.
Snyder's? Okay, never
Yes.
mind. Then that might not be the best way to tie it back. But that's like kind of what I envision Gunn's attempt. But I really hope it's a Reeves. I really hope it's a Reeves.
Yeah, and I completely agree with everything you're saying. To me it doesn't make sense to let a Matt Reeves production house run the thing, give the style that I know it's going to have. The idea of Clayface, because Clayface is kind of scary when you think about it. Like if you go that body horror route, the idea of your skin kind of melting and forming into like until you get control of it, that is a scary concept. So I'm very invested to see what, again, the horror connoisseur Mike Flanagan will come up with, especially if he's been brewing with this story for so long. We're going into year 4 of this idea being a thing, and he's actually getting to work on it. I don't think you can have this be not in the Elseworlds with Matt Reeves. It just, I understand if you want to bring in somebody that you know can get a feel, or you know can develop these characters properly, and Matt Reeves to kind of be in your world. I completely understand it, and I think that I remember reading somewhere that Gunn had some conversations and some thoughts about trying to bring Pattinson into the DCU, but just said, you know what, that just needs to be its own thing. Like it was never meant for this, which I like. I just think that if this is going to be a Matt Reeves is going to have his style, you can prove your point that Gunn is trying to have here about, hey, DC is the place to have anything, which I love, by the way, because think about it. Like it's like in real world and in life, some people live different realities than others, and that's not a bad thing. We're all part of one world and one shared timeline. I'm not trying to say something weird or conspiracy theory, but what I am saying is that we all live different lives. And the idea that some stories are told in animation and are really grotesque, like Creature Commandos and more adult, versus there's a new Superman coming out, and that's probably going to be Superman. It's probably going to be more family friendly. And the idea that in the same kind of sect, in it, maybe in the Elseworlds, yes, but you have these type of horror films also in the same universe, because a Clayface, if Clayface were to be real again, his reality probably would be like a movie, like a horror movie. So I'm very very invested in this film, especially I hate to say it, it might kill it a little bit for me if it is in the DCU. Just because I want Matt Reeves to be able to grow his own without necessarily being pulled into something that started after he had his project. Because if you remember, Matt Reeves was there before James Gunn. Moving on, Warhammer 40K live action series with Henry Cavill attached, finally greenlit at Amazon after months of speculation. Cavill will star and act as executive producer for the film. If you remember, it's been 2 years since Amazon earned the rights, the global rights for the IP, I should say, from Games Workshop, which that is the company that makes the tabletop little minifigs. That's how Warhammer kind of got started. It was in this little shop with these minifigs, kind of like D&D. And I'm sure there's probably a crowd out there that just cringed at me saying that, but I am not super familiar with the series. However, Amazon 2 years ago gets the IP, gets the distribution and global rights from Game Workshop. Finally, the ball's been moving after 2 years. It is confirmed that the first installment in this story will be through a TV series medium, which not super shocking because I know one thing about Warhammer is it is a vast story. It's too big, I think, for just 1 2 to 3 hour movie. This timing is in coincidence with Games Workshop kind of threatening Amazon a little bit, saying if there is no creative direction between the two companies agreed upon by December of this year, so now, they would remove their global rights. They would just take it away and said, you know, we'll find another company that we can work with. All of a sudden, bam, here we go. Rights have been agreed upon. A story is here, and now we're moving forward with a series. So before we move on and before we discuss this, I think it's important for all of us who don't know about Warhammer to at least have a quick breakdown. So quick Google search. Here is what kind of Warhammer is all about in a very brief one-sentence synopsis, if you can do that for Warhammer. Quote, humanity is trapped in a grim, stagnant future where they are constantly at war with alien races and malevolent supernatural forces, all under the rule of the Emperor of Mankind, a powerful powerful psychic being who leads the vast imperium of man through a galaxy teetering on the brink of annihilation. With all of this being said, I can only think of The Witcher. I could only think with Henry Cavill attached with this big, bright story that is so encompassing with just maintaining the original IP and sticking to source material, I can only think of The Witcher and Henry Cavill's exit from The Witcher. Jake, what can Amazon do to avoid these same pitfalls?
Listen to the source material. I believe Games Workshop did the right thing, put their foot down, told the big Amazon, say, hey, you're gonna do what we want. You're gonna tell the story how it's supposed to be told, because this is the audience. Like you said, you pointed out that they cringe when you probably compared it to D&D, and that's why it wouldn't work any other way other than the owner of Warhammer, their way of doing things. So I don't think it would work any other way, because it's such a vast universe. I've heard stories of people not getting like parts of the armor correct at like Comic Cons and then being like called out for it, not ostracized, but they've been called out and said, hey, that's not the right ankle armor, buddy.
Yeah.
So it's down to those minute things of characters that you've never heard of, just being surface level knowledge, and hey, your ankle armor's wrong. That's what this IP is to people. And so putting the foot down, telling Amazon to, hey, screw up, buddy, we know what we're doing. I commend them for it. I applaud it. I love it. And Henry Cavill attached to it, he's one of those, I want to say, diehard guys, because he left Witcher for that very reason, or they got rid of him for that reason, because he believed in source material. And yeah, sometimes that's the right way to go.
Yeah, and I mean, I couldn't agree more. You got to a point. Henry Cavill, why he's attached is because he's a diehard Warhammer fan. He's always been. If you can watch him on Graham Norton, which is a British talk show, him talk about it all the time. I think they avoid these pitfalls by making him that executive producer. The Witcher, I don't believe he was a producer on The Witcher. You avoid those problems when you let the guy who is trying to portray the story tell the story from behind the scenes as well. This makes me also think about a conversation we had last week with George R.R. Martin and the idea of adaptations. I think this is kind of where I think The Witcher went way out of left field, is because they took it too far. I think there's a point to where you have to, again, it's a different medium, so there are some things that are going to be changed. It's just a matter of how the industry works, how art is. You're not going to be able to get the exact same that you get in the books or in the video games into a film, especially when it's live action or a TV series. However, being as close to that source material seems to be very important to Henry Cavill, and allowing him to kind of right the ship and call the shots. I think that's important to keep them out of the same issues that Netflix ran into with The Witcher, which I don't know how they're going to succeed without him. I think Liam Hemsworth is a great actor. He's not Geralt. Henry is. So I'm interested to see where this goes, especially because this is just the first potential in a franchise. This is the first installment in a potential franchise, I should say. So we're in some interesting territory here with Henry Cavill and Warhammer. Any final thoughts in our major segments before we end the segment?
I don't. But don't you dare get your leg armor wrong.
Right? I never. I pay very close attention to the ankle gear in Warhammer, not D&D. Heading into our last segment, as always, we let you know what you should know before you go. Coming up next. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to segment 3. What you should know before you go. Thank you so much for sticking with us this far. If you've gotten this far, that means you've gotten through Clayface, you've gotten through Batman, you've gotten through Sony, and we are so thankful that you're here with us. We love you, and if you like us, give us a like, give us a thumbs up, share, give it to your mom. She will probably enjoy it. If not, we'll wave you along as we always do, but thank you so much for being here. Hopping right in to segment 3. Austin Butler has reportedly, an emphasis on reportedly, been cast as Patrick Bateman in Luca Guadagnino's upcoming American Psycho adaptation. Despite rumors that Jacob Elordi was eyed for the role, Butler reportedly won out. The film has been written by Scott Z. Burns of the Laundromat fame, which I've never seen, but I've heard it's pretty good, and is reported not a remake of the original. So this is not a shot-for-shot, hey, we're going to get Austin Butler in Christian Bale's shoes, and we're going to do the exact same film. Apparently, this is a lot different. While not officially cast yet, Butler is all but signed on and is waiting essentially for a deal. Jake, what differences do you look this adaptation to have?
So this movie already being based off of a book. So you said written by Scott Z. I This book was written by a woman, and so she told it a certain way, and I can't remember how she thought about the original movie, but I'm not sure if it was negative or positive, but there's a different way to tell it, and whether they stick to the source material or not, it will be something we'll talk about in the future, whether or not, hey, you should have stuck to the source material if it flops. But I think there's another way to tell it, and I'm excited to see how they tell it. If it's not going to be a frame for frame, and we get to see another Patrick Bateman, and I follow the meme culture behind a lot of things, and Patrick Bateman being one of the significant ones in terms of was it the toxic male meme, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested in seeing how this one will play into it, or maybe they'll take it the other direction and it won't be the toxic male meme that it's grown to be. I am just truthfully excited to see what it does in terms of social media and society there.
Yeah, I worry that it might lose a little bit of its point because, as you said, the book was written by a woman and the original was directed by Mary Harron, who the whole point of American Psycho, which I think it's lost on some people, is that's to make fun of that toxic masculinity. It's like it's kind of it's kind of the point and joke. People don't really take it that way, but they should. It's not something to kind of emulate. It's something to make fun of. And I worry that Luca is a fantastic director. I've heard nothing but fantastic things from him, and he has kind of an eccentric eye. So I'm interested from that perspective to see how he takes it because he has a very distinct look in his films. So I'm interested from that perspective to see how the adaptation will be different. But just in general, I think that they nailed it with the first one, and this is another one of those things: is does everything need a remake? And the answer is no. The answer is just no. And I will more than likely just land on the side of just leave it alone if it's great the first time. So I look for this to be something more original than just a remake, and I think that's kind of the point what they're going for. But I hope that the point of what the story is isn't lost. I want an original take, a fresh of breath air with the story, but I don't want it to lose what the whole point is. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, 100%. Also, just looked it up. I was wrong. Person who wrote the book is a guy, Bret Easton Ellis.
Same
The
point.
person
though.
who directed the movie was a woman, and she told it, like you had said, against the toxic male. So I look forward to a different telling. I don't know much about Bret Ellis and how he wrote this book, but I can't wait.
Yeah, no, and is that the point? Maybe not, but that's how at least the original was, and I'm worried that they might lose that point. I think that's a good place to end here. Moving on. Big news of last week, Chris Evans has officially been cast in Avengers Doomsday. His role? Still unknown. Many speculate online that he is pulling an RDJ and will be donning a new suit for a new character with a whole new storyline. Others, however, due to the endlessness of the multiverse that Marvel has built on screen, he could be an infinite number of different variations of Cap, which would be interesting to see him go up against Sam as the current MCU's Cap. Fun little storyline there. Regardless, we talked about superhero fatigue a lot on this show, but barring that superhero fatigue, how would you like to see Chris Evans utilized in this film or the greater MCU moving forward?
I think he's a cash grab. I don't think. I mean, they kind of used him as Johnny in the Deadpool movie, just because that's who he played originally. So he was the Human Torch.
Mm-hmm.
But to bring him back for another Avengers, it is the play on the multiverse, and I don't know, man. I'm tired of that. I'm so tired of it. And if he's another Cap, so be it. But you've got so much other things to talk about. There's so many other stories. You haven't even dived into Falcon being the new Captain America, other than the TV show saying this is now him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do something, and that's the meme of the guy poking I don't remember what it was, a dead horse or a dead cow. Just do something. Come
Yeah.
on.
No, exactly.
Oh,
I will play devil's advocate a little bit because I think that they're really obviously I agree. I think that they've had such a tumultuous time the last 5 years past these guys being kind of the cornerstones of this franchise that they brought them back and they're spinning it in a really interesting way. And I've seen it a lot online. It's like, what will Peter Parker think when he first sees Victor Von Doom and he looks like essentially his father? Same question could be applied to Sam. What will he do saying if Chris Evans is, portraying another version of Cap and maybe it's not a good one? What will he do when he sees Steve, his best friend, the guy who essentially trained him, on the opposite side, not with the same values? That's where I find some interest, and I think that that's the best way you can spin it and the only way. But no, I completely agree. I think Kevin Feige was like, this is actually a lot harder when you don't have an all-star lineup that hit perfectly the first time we've shown them. It's hard to build new characters once you've killed off all the old ones. Let's bring them back. But I have to say, no one can judge Kevin Feige and say he's a bad storyteller. He's done well. Any thoughts?
no, it's a cop out. I truly think it's a cop out. Like you said, it's hard to build. Well, yeah, that's why it's a multi-million billion-dollar industry. It's hard, man. And if you can't do it, can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. But he's good at what he does. It's just it sucks to see Marvel on this downhill, and I hope they find something that they can use to climb back up.
Something like, yes, to climb back up, but something that's original, something that's new. Like
Yeah.
I want to see a live action Miles Morales. Now that is a way to make something unique for a post Doomsday Avengers and post Doomsday Marvel. Moving on, Tangled, another live action remake, is reportedly in the works at Disney. An interesting note, The Greatest Showman director Michael Gacy is on tap, reportedly to direct if this kind of gets pushed through. Gacy comes off his Robbie Williams biopic, which biopic, it's got to be in quotation marks because it's a weird way to do a biopic. Better Man is the film's name. For those who don't know about Better Man, Robbie Williams is a famous British musician. He's Hall of Fame worthy, very, very prominent overseas. There's one strange twist to this biopic, again in quotation marks, however. Robbie's character is portrayed as a chimpanzee. People love this film. It's up for some awards. It was received very well. My intrigue here with this upcoming film adaptation of Tangled, which is reportedly being penned by Jennifer Caton Robinson, who has written for a film called Do Revenge and notoriously Thor: Love and Thunder, which has mixed reviews. How will, say, Michael Gacy, what will he pull from when he's writing or coming up with this film in his director's chair? Will it be from The Greatest Showman, which has this sense of whimsy and that makes a otherwise pretty dire story of the real life P.T. Barnum and of the atrocities that were the original circus regime as it was going about, making that seem whimsical, making that seem magical and amazing? Will he pull from that, or will he pull from this more eccentric take on a biopic as in Better Man? So, Jake, with that kind of laid out, what are your expectations for this film?
And I put these two things together just now while you were talking, that Thor: Love and Thunder was kind of written how I imagine the first animated, the Tangled, was kind of told. It felt joking, and just the feel of Thor: Love and Thunder didn't seem as serious as it was supposed to be. And then I compared it to Tangled, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. If Tangled was written by Jennifer the same way Thor: Love and Thunder was, and it's directed by Michael Gracie, who's done The Greatest Showman, I think they might have something good on their hands when you put those two together, until dun 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 Disney gets their grubby little hands on it.
Yeah.
So time will tell. Time will tell. But this is something that I think could be good as far as live action remakes go.
Yeah. And I hate we've talked about this, how much we hate this trend and whatever, and then all of a sudden we see the first trailer for Lilo and Stitch, and we're like, oh, this doesn't look that bad, looks pretty good. And now I'm hearing Tangled, and I'm seeing who's attached to it, and I'm like, ooh, I'm very intrigued by it. I'm not gonna sit here and say that I think this is gonna be a home run. However, I am very invested in this film from the simple fact that Gracie's involved, because Gracie, I think, could capture that feel that the original Tangled. I won't lie, I saw Robinson as the writer, and not that she's a bad writer, but Thor, when I think about that, about Love and Thunder, it wasn't great. And I wonder if that's because the feel that you're saying didn't really fit for that movie, and it shouldn't have been that way. And maybe exactly what you said, it'll work better for what a Tangled should be. I have a little bit of concern in that respect. I can't get my head around. This is one of the more down to earth stories, ironically. If you can take out the magic hair, I think that practically can be done very well. So I don't know if they're going to miss with this one, but I have some reservations. Exactly what you said. Will Disney do what they do? Will they, they have the tendency to kind of get over involved and overproduce. Will Robinson be able to do more of a Tangled versus a Love and Thunder? Those are my questions, but I think this has the potential to be a really good adaptation. Moving on, Adam Sandler has announced that Happy Gilmore 2 has wrapped filming. Reports of celebrity cameos in the film include Eminem, Travis Kelce, and John Daly. Jake, what do you think about the upcoming sequel to Happy Gilmore?
I liked Happy Gilmore 1, I guess, and so this is going to be another Adam Sandler deal. If they're going to have cameos like Eminem, Travis, it's not going to be serious by any means. Not that Adam Sandler was making serious movies; he was in the business of making serious movies to begin with. But I enjoyed a lot of Adam Sandler's movies. So 51st Dates is one that Taylor, my girlfriend, and I are super into. And so a good Adam Sandler movie just to sit down and have in the background is, you can't pass that up. So Happy Gilmore 2, I hope it retains the Sandler-esque feel. If I can turn Happy Gilmore on, overhear a scene, and give it a chuckle every single time.
Yeah, I think the thing is, we talked about cash grab, and I don't necessarily think this is exactly what this is, but you're not going to lose with a Happy Gilmore 2 because people will show up for the spectacle. They will show up just to see it because it's Happy Gilmore. But it's another, again, and I feel like I'm such a Debbie Downer this first month of the show. I just don't think this is necessary. I think that there are so many more interesting stories to tell other than a Happy Gilmore 2. Will it be intriguing to see what's been going on in the life of this world? Yeah. It'll be intriguing for maybe the first 45 minutes, but I just don't know if this will hold up for an entirety of a 90-minute film. Or 2-hour film, whatever, however the length is. I hope it's everything that the first one was, because then we've got an instant classic on our hands. But with this, it worries me because I think about Dumb and Dumber 2. Like that's the only thing that I can have kind of a point of reference to, where it was like decade plus 2-decade long break between the first and the sequel. And Dumb and Dumber was hilarious. The sequel was awful. It was just not a good movie. It just didn't need to happen. And I worry that this will be another Dumb and Dumber 2. That's, I guess, any thoughts on that, Jake? That's kind of my thoughts around Happy Gilmore 2.
Until I see more info on it and some trailers, it has just wrapped filming. So I don't have much more to say on it opinion wise until I start seeing kind of how they market it and see what kind of feel they're pushing for.
Yeah, leave your thoughts down below about Happy Gilmore 2 if you made it this far. I'd love to hear what you guys think. And last but not least, lot in the world of DC, as we've talked about earlier. We got a first look at James Gunn's Superman. As his poster was revealed, it looks very retro. I love the way that I cannot remember his name, but his first name is David. I can't remember his last name, but the guy that plays Superman, he looks fantastic. I love what this is kind of presenting. I think it's going to be a fun story. I trust James Gunn. Everything from what I've seen from Creature Commandos and everything, how he's run it, him and Peter Safran, I'm loving this DCU a lot. I love the different styles. I know I've said it before, but I'll reiterate. The film's teaser trailer will also grace our screens this upcoming Thursday, December 19th. Jake, what do you think about this upcoming teaser trailer and about the poster?
I'm all for the retro feel. I'm always like that nostalgia. I was not necessarily around when the old movies, but Dad talks about old Superman in his red underwear kind of deal. So I look forward to this new story. We're not going to see Cavill as Superman. Cavill's coming back as a topic, but I don't know. I think this guy. I think he's got something, not something to prove, but I think he's got an idea of who he wants to be as Superman, and I think he's gonna do good. It's just a matter of whether or not the story supports it.
And that, I think, is our perfect note to end our show. We're running up on 57 minutes. Thank you so much for listening. Jake, do you have any final thoughts to leave our listeners with before we head home?
Wear your underwear on the inside of your pants. Superman can do it. You cannot.
It's a tough thing to pull off. I couldn't agree more.
No, you can pull them off on the outside. I wouldn't recommend trying to pull them off on the inside of your pants, though.
And on that note, see you guys next week. Thank you guys so much. Bye.